Imagine this. You're lying in bed late at night, holding your phone, listening to your friend talk about everything that's falling apart in their life. You don't interrupt, you don't judge. You just stay there, quietly saying things like, "I understand," or "You'll get through this." You do this again the next night, and the night after that, and slowly, you become the person they rely on the most when things feel heavy. Weeks pass, and one day they tell you things are finally getting better. You feel relieved, even a little proud, because deep down, you believe moments like this are what build strong relationships. When you help someone through their worst time, the bond should become stronger, not weaker. But then, something strange begins to happen. They stop replying the way they used to. Messages that once came instantly now take hours. Conversations that used to go deep now stay on the surface. When you meet them, there's a slight awkwardness you can't quite explain. Like something invisible has shifted between you. And then one day, you hear they've been talking about you behind your back. And suddenly, you're left with a question that doesn't make sense. How could someone I helped so much treat me like this? If you've ever felt this, you know it's not just confusing, it's almost disorienting. Because it breaks a belief most of us carry without even thinking about it. When we help people, they should appreciate us and grow closer to us. And most of the time, that belief is true. But not always. Because in certain situations, helping someone too much doesn't strengthen the relationship. It quietly creates pressure that slowly pushes them away. And the most surprising part is this. It's not really about your actions. It's about what your help made them feel about themselves. Picture a simple moment. Someone is trying to climb over a wall, but they keep slipping and falling. They try again and again, getting frustrated. Maybe even embarrassed. Then you walk over, reach out your hand, and pull them up. From your perspective, it's just kindness, a natural thing to do. But from their perspective, another thought quietly appears in the background. I couldn't do this without them. Now here's the important part that most people miss. For someone with a stable sense of self, this thought isn't a problem. Everyone needs help sometimes. But for someone whose self-esteem is fragile, that moment hits differently. It doesn't just feel like help, it feels like exposure. Later that night, they might lie in bed, replaying the moment. Not focusing on your kindness, but on what it says about them. Why couldn't I do it myself? Slowly turns into, maybe I'm not as capable as I thought. And without realizing it, your help has created what psychologists call threatened egotism, where reality quietly challenges how someone sees themselves. This is where something subtle but powerful begins. Every time they see you, they are reminded of that moment. You become more than just a person in their life. You become a mirror, reflecting a version of themselves they don't feel comfortable with. And while some people can accept that reflection and grow from it, others can't. Instead of confronting the feeling, they unconsciously try to remove the source of discomfort. And that's when distance begins. At first, it doesn't look like anything serious. They reply a little slower. They seem a little less engaged. They say they're busy more often than usual. From your side, it feels confusing, but still explainable. But underneath that surface, another emotional layer is forming. And this one is even heavier. Think about a small situation first. Imagine someone buys you a coffee. You naturally feel like returning the favor, and it feels easy, balanced, almost automatic. Now imagine something much bigger. Someone supports you through the hardest time of your life, gives you opportunities, stands by you when you feel lost. That kind of help creates something very different. It creates emotional debt. At first, emotional debt feels like gratitude, but over time, it can turn into pressure. The person starts thinking, I owe them something big. But at the same time, they don't know how to repay it, and the longer that feeling stays unresolved, the heavier it becomes. Psychologists call this debt aversion, which is the discomfort people feel when they owe more than they can realistically return. And instead of motivating appreciation, it often creates anxiety. Because every interaction becomes a reminder of what they haven't paid back. So imagine them again, seeing your name on their phone. Instead of feeling happy, they feel a subtle tension. A quiet voice in their mind says, you still owe them mazi, and you haven't done enough. And suddenly, even something as simple as replying to your message starts to feel uncomfortable. This is where behavior starts to change. They begin replying less often, avoiding long conversations, keeping things light so they don't have to engage emotionally. And eventually, they may start creating distance altogether. From your perspective, it feels like they've changed for no reason. But from their perspective, they are trying to escape a feeling they don't know how to handle. But this is only the beginning of a deeper shift. As time passes, your life continues moving forward. You grow. You improve. You become more stable, maybe even more successful. And when they see you again, something else begins to happen inside their mind. A new tension forms, one that is harder to ignore. On one side, they still want to believe, I am capable, I am independent. But on the other side, there's a memory they can't fully erase. At one point, I depended on them. These two beliefs don't sit comfortably together, and the brain naturally tries to resolve that conflict. But instead of changing the past, the mind changes the story. That moment when you help them starts to feel smaller in their memory. Their struggles don't seem as serious anymore. And your role in their life begins to shift in a subtle but important way. Maybe you weren't just helping. Maybe you were making them feel small. Maybe your support wasn't pure. Maybe there was something else behind it. And here's the part that makes this so difficult to see from the outside. They might genuinely believe this new version of the story. Not because they are trying to lie, but because their mind is protecting their identity. Because accepting the truth would mean accepting a version of themselves they are not ready to face. And once this shift happens, the relationship doesn't break all at once. It changes slowly, in small, almost invisible ways. Conversations feel different. Energy feels different. And the connection that once felt natural now feels forced. And if you look closely, you might start to notice something building underneath all of this. Because when someone sees you continue to grow, continue to succeed, continue to become someone others respect, a new emotion can quietly appear. It doesn't show up loudly at first, and most people would never admit it, even to themselves. But it's there. And in the next part, you'll see how that emotion turns appreciation into resentment. And why sometimes the person you helped the most can become the one who distances themselves the furthest. That emotion is envy, but not the kind people openly admit or talk about. Not the kind that pushes someone to improve themselves. This version is quieter, heavier, and much harder to notice. It doesn't say, "I want to be like them." Instead, it whispers something more uncomfortable. Why does their success make me feel like I'm falling behind? Imagine this moment. You walk into a room, and people naturally turn toward you. Someone smiles. Someone asks about your work. Someone listens closely when you speak. It all feels normal to you. But across the room, there's someone watching quietly. They give a small smile, then quickly look away, pretending to be busy with something else. Nothing dramatic happens, but inside them, something shifts. Because every time they see you doing well, it doesn't just show your progress, it reminds them of a version of themselves they're not comfortable with. It brings back that old memory, the moment they needed your help, the moment they didn't feel strong or in control. And instead of feeling inspired, they begin to compare. And comparison, especially when someone already feels uncertain about themselves, rarely leads to motivation. It leads to discomfort. That discomfort slowly builds, turning admiration into tension, and tension into quiet resentment. Here's what makes this even more subtle. This process doesn't happen all at once. It grows through small moments. A comment they hear about your success. A situation where others respect you. A reminder that you seem to be moving forward while they feel stuck or unsure. Over time, those moments start to connect. And without realizing it, the way they see you begins to change. At first, it might come out as light jokes that feel slightly off. Like, "You're doing really well these days. Must be nice." Said with a tone that doesn't quite match the words. You might laugh it off, but something feels strange. Then conversations start losing depth. They stop asking about your life. Stop engaging the way they used to. The energy becomes flatter, more distant. And then it shifts again into something harder to define. Small comments, subtle criticism, maybe even a hint of negativity when they talk about you to others. Nothing obvious enough to confront directly, but enough for you to feel that something isn't right. And you find yourself wondering again, why are they acting like this? But the real answer goes deeper than envy itself. Because envy is not the root. It's a response to something underneath. To understand that, we need to look at two emotions that seem similar on the surface, but lead to completely different outcomes. Guilt and shame. Imagine someone makes a mistake. If they feel guilt, their inner voice says, "I did something wrong." And because of that, they feel a natural urge to fix it. They apologize, they take responsibility, they try to repair what was damaged. But shame works differently. Shame doesn't focus on actions. It focuses on identity. Instead of "I did something wrong," it becomes, "There's something wrong with me." Now go back to the moment when they needed your help. If that moment triggered shame instead of simple gratitude, then deep inside, it may have left a mark they didn't know how to process. Not just "I needed help," but needing help says something bad about who I am. And that feeling is extremely uncomfortable. So the mind looks for a way out. Imagine them sitting alone, replaying the past. Instead of thinking, "I felt weak back then," their mind slowly reshapes the story into something easier to accept. It wasn't that I was weak. Maybe they made me feel that way. Then it shifts further. Quote, "Maybe they weren't just helping. Maybe they were trying to show they were better than me." This is what psychologists call projection. It's when someone takes a difficult feeling inside themselves and places it onto someone else, so they don't have to face it directly. And once this shift happens, everything starts to change. Because now, you are no longer the person who supported them during a difficult time. You become the person associated with their discomfort, the one who reminds them of something they don't want to feel. And from that point on, their behavior begins to make sense in a different way. The distance is no longer random. The coldness is no longer confusing. Even the negativity, the subtle tension, the quiet withdrawal, all of it connects back to something internal, not something you did wrong. But from your perspective, it still feels sudden, because you didn't see the internal process building over time. So what can you actually take from this? It doesn't mean you should stop being kind or generous. It doesn't mean you should close yourself off from helping others. But it does mean that kindness needs awareness to stay healthy. There are 3 simple things to remember. First, support people, but don't become their foundation. The healthiest relationships are built when both people grow, not when one person carries the other. Helping someone stand is different from holding them up indefinitely. Second, build your sense of value from within. When your self-worth comes from your own growth, your effort, and your character, you don't feel the need to constantly prove it by rescuing others, and this naturally creates more balanced relationships. Third, pay attention to how people respond to your growth. The right people feel comfortable around your success. They don't shrink in its presence. They don't feel threatened by it. They grow alongside it. And this leads to one important realization. If someone turns away from you after you helped them, it doesn't mean your kindness was misplaced. It means they weren't able to handle what that kindness reflected back to them. Because the truth is simple. The right people don't feel smaller when you grow. They feel inspired. So take a moment and think about your own experiences. Who in your life feels easy to be around, even when things are going well for you? And who feels slightly distant, slightly uncomfortable, slightly different than before? That difference tells you more than words ever could. And if this made you understand something you couldn't explain before, then you're starting to see a deeper pattern in human behavior. If you want to keep exploring these patterns, understanding how people think, feel, and react beneath the surface, stay connected with the Thinking Mind Lab. And before you go, I want to ask you something simple. Have you ever helped someone? Maria. And then slowly felt them drift away?